Hi, I'm Abby. This is Abby Matt Reads. Today, this beautiful library I chose for a specific reason because it is the Abbey Library of St. Gallen in Switzerland. I love the ceiling. Can you see that? It's the oldest library in Switzerland and one of the oldest and most important monastery libraries in the entire world. It holds 160,000 volumes, some dating back to the 8th century, and it's been named a World Heritage Site. So this is my very late February wrap up. This month I read 5 books and it was a very good reading month because all of the books were either 4 or 5 stars. So let's get into them. The first book I finished in February is one I can't find, so I'm going to put a little picture somewhere. It is Noggin by John Corey Whaley, and it is a brilliant book. I read it as part of the Book 2 Rereadathon 2019, hosted mainly by Alex Black and me and Alyssa. It was to read a first, and Noggin was the first YA book I ever read as an adult. And it is an amazing book. It's got a very weird premise. It's about a guy called Travis who is riddled with cancer and he's not going to make it. So they try this pioneering new kind of experiment where they kind of let him die, basically, but kind of take off his head, and then in a few years his head is reattached to a donor body and he's essentially brought back to life. And then there's kind of issues about, like his girlfriend has moved on and his parents are older and the world has changed, but it's really funny and it's really heartwarming. I really loved it. So yeah, the premise is kind of ridiculous, but you have to admit it is interesting. And the writer just kind of skates us along through very poignant moments, such as the people that he loved watching him die, and then when he's brought back, the fact that they've moved on, they've grown older. It's a lot to take in, but it's not a depressing book. This book really made me laugh. Not a lot of books can make me laugh, but this one did. It's really kind of life affirming, especially, oh my god, yeah, his best friend Hatton, his new best friend Hatton, because of course he's got to go back to school because he's technically still 16. So he's got to go back to school, makes a new friend Hatton. Obviously all his friends have left. Unfortunately, his worst teacher is still there. And it's a laugh a minute. It made me laugh a lot, and I will give a book a lot of stars just for that alone. It's full of kind of light and love. It's heartwarming. It's life affirming. And while it never gets too dark, there are actually some very poignant moments, some very moving moments. And I think that's a big credit to the author for being able to put so much emotion, so much different kind of moods into one book, and I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. The second book I finished in February, I have to keep reminding myself it's not March, I'm talking about February. Okay, so it was The Kingmaker's Daughter by Philippa Gregory, which follows Anne Neville, daughter of the Duke of Warwick, who was named the Kingmaker in the Cousins' War as he backed so many men in battle and politically who would become kin, including the kin in this current book, King Edward. Anne Neville was his daughter and was kind of used in his political gainsay, and then the Duke of Warwick turned against King Edward and died, leaving Anne a pawn to even more people, usually men, and ended up her marrying Richard III, who it wasn't the most ideal of husbands. This was my favourite of all the Cousins' War books. While it didn't grip me enough for me to give it 5 stars, it really was better than, I think it was the White Queen and the Red Queen that I read in January. I found the slower pace of this book compared to the other two kept the story more intense and contained. I felt very sorry for Anne being used as a pawn basically her entire life by all various types of men and characters, but I really admired her kind of dogged nature and the way she tried to make the best out of everything. Also, through her eyes, I got a new perspective on Elizabeth Woodville, the queen that married King Edward, and got to see why a lot of people don't like her. I mean, obviously she was portrayed in The White Queen as someone different, but this book showed a different side to her. This story was not a happy one. There's a lot of very bleak moments in it, but it is very interesting and it is fascinating, and I gave it 4 stars out of 5. The third book I finished in February was We Sold Our Souls by Grady Hendrix. I buddy read this with Sam from Sarcasm and Sci-Fi. I will put her link down below in the description to her channel. Go and check her out. She is absolutely amazing. And this is basically about a kind of rock band called Dirtwork, but spelled with kind of German dots over the U's. And they were a kind of popular rock, heavy metal rock band in the 90s before something kind of strange happened. I mean, this is a horror story, and Terry, the lead singer, he kind of did a dodgy deal that had to do with their souls. Chris is now in this present day working in a hotel, and her life isn't going that good. The band split up because of Terry's headstrong ways. She finds out that Terry is coming back because Terry got successful after the band in his own right. And she sees his face on billboards and advertising on the radio, and decides that she wants to get back in touch with some of the old members of the band. Now, they all kind of have this grudge against her, and you don't know why yet, and I'm obviously not going to tell you. But when she visits the first band member, she can find something very shocking happens, and she suddenly realises that a night she can't remember and a night they can't remember, where Terry got them to sign certain contracts, is very important, and she needs to find Terry and stop the madness that's going on. This book was a wild ride. Firstly, the power of music that is so strong throughout this book made me really jealous of people with musical abilities. I just really wanted to suddenly get up and play the guitar perfectly without ever having done so before. It is a kind of odd story, a kind of like kind of off-kilter story, but it takes you along a lot of different paths. It's really interesting. It's a lot of fun. I really like how the story keeps you guessing and encourages you to put together all the pieces to try and form out what's going on. It is action-packed. There's never a dull moment, but at the same time, it doesn't rush anything. The pace is actually quite perfect. The bad guys in this book are real, proper bad guys, and it can be really gory at times. I don't mind that, but if you don't like gore, then don't read this book. But do read this book because it's good, okay? It's wonderfully imaginative and quite silly, which is kind of, I think, Grady Hendrix's style. After reading it, I did give it 5 stars, but on kind of future reflection, looking back, a lot of Chris's decisions in this book kind of irritated me. So I brought it back down to 4 stars, but I really want to read, what is it called? Horror Stock, I think, the other book by Grady Hendrix. I really want to read that, and so I will give this book 4 out of 5 stars. The fourth book I finished in February was Jane Seymour, The Haunted Queen by Alison Weir. I'd never read any of Alison Weir's books before, But I saw this in my supermarket for cheap, and I thought I would get it because I love historical fiction and I will just snap it up whenever I can, especially if it's cheap. So I brought this up. It follows actually Jane Seymour's life. She was Henry VIII's third wife, who knew the previous two and was said to be the only wife he ever truly loved and the only one who gave him an heir. She gave birth to Prince Edward, who would later become king but still died quite young. And it was a really, really, really good book. This book really took me by surprise because I didn't think anybody could write about Tudor queens as well as Philippa Gregory does, but I actually think Alison Weir is better. And now that I've read this book of hers, I want to read all of the Tudor Queens books. I think there's obviously there's Catherine of Aragon is out right now, and so is Anne Boleyn. And I'm looking forward to following this series as the rest of the books come out. There is not a lot written about Jane Seymour in historical fiction that I've ever found. She's kind of not overlooked, but not much is said about her. I don't know if not much is known about her to a lot of historians or historical fiction writers, but this was not just a list of important timelines and dates and occurrences that happened, but Jane's full life. And I understand some of it was, of course, fictionalized, but it was really interesting to kind of read about her. And not that she was quite a strong woman as well. She's often portrayed as meek and mild, but this wasn't the case. And it spans her whole life. You really get to know her. You really feel by the end of the book like you know Jane Seymour very well. The romance between Jane and Henry was actually quite sweet. You don't really want to give credit to Henry VIII and think that he can actually be a kind of romantic man, but I enjoyed it. I enjoyed their romance. I think they were suited to each other. I think if she hadn't have died so soon after giving birth, I think they could have been a good couple. I actually think maybe he would have actually stuck with her as a proper wife. But who knows? That's just my rambling. Anyway, this book, the reason I'm talking to you, is very intelligent but very easy to read, and I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. The fifth and last book I read in February was Daphne du Maurier's Jamaica Inn. This was for the BookTube Rereadathon 2019 for February's prompt, which was read an underrated book. Now, I think that Jamaica Inn is a very underrated book because everyone looks at Daphne du Maurier and thinks of Rebecca or My Cousin Rachel or maybe Scapegoat maybe. But Jamaica Inn was the first Daphne du Maurier book I ever read, and it was what made me fall in love with Daphne du Maurier. And this story follows Mary, whose mother's dying wish was for her to join her aunt and her uncle, her aunt's husband, in Jamaica Inn in Cornwall. And you soon kind of find out that her uncle is up to no good. He is a not a very nice man, and her aunt is a basically kind of wailing pushover of a woman that doesn't stand very tall in her own mind. And Mary kind of gets sucked into this world, this dark world that's happening, and you will find out secrets about Jamaica Inn, secrets about the characters. There are some brilliant characters in this book. I can't say too much about this book because I'm planning a review that I will hopefully put out next week. But I will say that as always, like, Daphne du Maurier writes the most atmospheric prose I have ever read. She's brilliant. Her writing is beautiful and stunning and effortless. And I wish that I was half as talented as she was at writing. And I will let you know more about this book when I do my review. And I will just say that I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. So thank you for watching my February wrap-up, my super late February wrap-up. I am on Twitter at AbbieMacReads, and I have a Facebook page, facebook.com/AbbieMacReads. I would like it if you gave me a thumbs up down below. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. Makes me a very happy girl or woman, whatever. I'll be whatever you want me to be if you subscribe to my channel. Okay, thank you. Bye.